Good morning. It's such a treat to be here with you this morning. Reverend David's up in Portland with a couple of the youth leaders, and they're learning how to run youth camp. And so he's up there and said, would I talk? And I haven't talked for a while, so I'm really happy to be here with you. And if you notice the title of this talk, it's What is Your Why? Now, that sounds maybe a little corny, especially for new people. But if you're fairly new with this, it's important to know that we do believe that the Earth is more than just a planet. It's a global community. And this center and all that are members here are part of that global community. And what we share together is a vision of a world that works for all. So you are invited to participate in that vision. And the topics for Sunday Talks this year have been selected by the leaders of the Global Centers for Spiritual Living. And so through hundreds of communities like this talking about the same topic, there's a lot of really great energy there. Now I'm going to do it my way, but at least we've got the key points that we're all talking about. So what is your why? In other words, why are you here? Did you ever ask yourself that? I say, why 2016? Crazy time. And there's an affirmation in your program that supports this talk, and here it is. I am an illuminating presence that casts a light of solution, harmony, and oneness wherever I abide. So we're talking about a world that works for all, but this affirmation is about us, our personal life. It's focused on us. I am an illuminating presence that casts a light of solution, harmony, and oneness wherever I abide. Now, if that affirmation comes true for me, sounds like a heck of a responsibility. It sounds pretty big. But to find a world that works for all, to create a world that works for all, we would not expect anything less, would we? So in this morning's reading, Dalton did a great job. It said that the universe supports us by reflecting back to us what we're thinking and being and doing as human beings. Now we know that's the law of cause and effect. I put a thought in motion and all of a sudden I'm seeing the results of my beliefs and I either like it or I don't. So in asking why you're here, what you're doing is being aware of your being as a soul, not as a human being. Because all of this is temporary. The chairs are temporary, our bodies are temporary, but the soul lives on forever. And so the adventure of being a human being is to discover who we are, to discover our talents, to discover what we like to do. And in that way, we express the joy of spirit, the joy of God. And so as we grow and evolve to clearly know who we are, that's the joy. And most importantly, we're here to express ourselves because the creative force of God is still in action. Stars are still being born. Planets are exploding. If you've seen any of the Hubble pictures lately, the universe continues to expand. That's creativity at the infinite level of infinite intelligence. And so when you had a moment where you didn't know how to solve a problem, we are the solution. We know there's a place to go. We can commune with our own soul, with spirit, and invite the answer. You know, I was in a county courthouse a few years ago and on some family business, and there was a young lady sitting there crying. And she was very agitated, and it was like she was trying to grasp an answer. And as a minister, I went up to her, I said, is there something I can do to help you? And she said, no, I'm trying to get the custody of my children back, and it's not going well. Well, any mother knows the heartstrings that tug when you want your children back. And I said, you know, if you ask, I bet you will hear an answer. Well, she didn't really know what that meant. But I remembered, oh, in my purse, I have taken a pack of Post-it notes, the ones that fan out, and I had gone to my Bible that has all the positive statements underlined in blue. And I had typed out 90 labels of positive statements from the Bible, and I put one on each one of these Post-it notes because a friend of mine who was Catholic was sick, and I wanted to give it to him, and he could pull one off every day and read it. I thought, he doesn't need that, she needs that. So I went over to her and I said, you know, I really believe there's an answer, and I believe you'll probably find it in here. And I gave it to her. She said, thank you. But you know what? She calmed down and she just held it. She didn't really know what it was. And when I left, she was just sitting there calm, holding these notes. So we never know when we're in the right place, because we're always in the right place. We're always in the right place. There are no accidents, as we say. So we learn in this philosophy, this science of mind philosophy, that when we are in those darkest moments, we can go to the source and we can invite the answer. But then we have to listen, and then we have to take personal responsibility. Ooh. Sometimes that doesn't feel so good. But we have connections with Spirit, and have we got connections? If we're willing to listen and to ask. I just finished giving an Eckhart Tolle class on A New Earth, and he has insight into this perfect topic of what is my why? So if you've ever felt like your life was out of control, and I appreciate that this has meaning here in 2016, Tolle says, what we are doing is the channel of how consciousness enters the world. Now, I had to read that a few times. What we are doing is how consciousness enters humanity, enters the world. So we do have a big responsibility there. Our doing or not doing impacts the world. And so we can often get tripped up not realizing that. And by tripped up, I mean the ego can really get attached to cars, clothes. We just got a new baby kitten yesterday. We didn't want to leave her at home, and we're attached already. And we can get attached to iPods and cell phones, and we see a lot of that. But the ego loves to get attached because we love to say, this is right and this is wrong. And this is where I'm right and this is where you're wrong. Mary, you're wrong not to have an iPad. What do you mean you don't have you don't turn your cell phone on? What do you mean you don't text? You don't text? It's like, I'm really happy. Well, I have to tell you about my Aunt Agnes in Ohio when I was growing up. I loved Aunt Agnes. But she would sit for hours in front of the TV watching C-SPAN, government. And she loved it. And she said, Mary, sit down. Now watch this. Watch what they're doing. Because she was always amazed at what people would do to get their vote, to get a vote. And she said, you got to watch this guy. And you got to. So I got really into politics. There's so many twists and turns with it. So this political season, I'm loving it. Not loving it because anybody's good or bad, but it's amazing. Nobody could have predicted this. But here's the truth. It's the evolution of consciousness. And the beat goes on. Pum, 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 pum. The beat goes on. I love it. Well, Eckhart Tolle cautions us. Whenever we fight something, we strengthen what we're fighting. Whenever we're resisting something, it persists in our experience. Whatever we resist persists. And he says, well, if you're fighting something or resisting something, you're letting other people declare your level of happiness. Why would you do that? And he said, okay, already, do you want peace or do you want drama? And that's a good question, isn't it? Do we want drama about everything that's happening, or I'm finding inner peace and just watching the whole world go by going, I'll be darned, I'd have never thought of that. I'd have never thought of that. So being aware of our attachments is very important in the transformation of our own consciousness. Nothing is more important than being conscious, believe me, because everything is temporary. And when we recognize that, it's easier to let go. One of our members is in the hospital, and she was supposed to get out, and then her lung collapsed, and she called me in a panic, and I said, oh, wait. Let's take a trip on the eternity of the soul here. Let's take a look at this and see that, maybe your greatest gift at the moment is to be the patient that doctor needed to do your lung collapse right, because it collapsed last week, and they thought they fixed it. Look at the greater gift of your life. And oh, it was, we just have to be snapped out of it sometimes. We just have to be snapped out of it. And so everything may be temporary, but our experience is profound in every moment that we live. That's why our prayers, what we call spiritual mind treatment, we're spiritually treating our mind, begin with oneness. Marilyn said, it's all one. And oneness is, we're all in this together. We're like swimming in an ocean, and I love that visualization. We're all swimming in this gorgeous blue ocean together. We don't really want to harm anyone. We want to love and project love and joy and happiness. And some people just aren't there. But we can do it, and we can help shift this consciousness. So it's important to keep our minds open, because the whole world was created by infinite intelligence. I mean, that is infinite intelligence. And so while it may look like chaos, the universe could not exist if it were not perfect. It would self-implode. It would not exist if it weren't perfect. So what looks like chaos is a natural unfoldment. When we look at it from God's eyes, that's what I often tell people. Wait a minute, step back. Look at it from God's eyes. What would God be doing? He'd be going, that's interesting, because he's given us the intelligence and the freedom. Stars are still exploding. There's those black holes out there. There's hot and cold, noisy and quiet, and no matter what the ego says, it isn't just good or bad. That beat of goodness and oneness goes on. That beat goes on. Sonny and Cher, do you remember that? I love it. Damien played it for me. I said, I just downloaded this morning. Where did that come from? He goes, he gets out his iPad, and there's Sonny and Cher singing that 25 years ago. It was like, oh my gosh. I don't know. It's fascinating. So we are God's livingness. Now, that's huge. This infinite intelligence created everyone unique, no two alike. We're here to express ourselves, to find out why we are here, to be the loving, infinite intelligence, to be, what are the 7 characteristics of God? Love, light, peace, joy, beauty. That's who we're here to be. That's the livingness that infinite intelligence is understanding. We often say, God created this so he could understand himself. Well, we don't see God as a he, but we see this energy permeating everything, trying to understand itself even more and evolving. So if we're not personally evolving, we have to ask, why am I not? Are we making good use of this gift? And another area we get tripped up is labeling. This last couple of years, I am in awe how many people label food, good food, bad food. And if it came from this country, it's bad, and if it came from this country, it's good, and if it has this, it's bad, and if it's this, it's good. Thursday, I was at a meeting of how to bring more nutritious food to the food banks because they're realizing there is better food for people that need food, that are hungry. And so it came down in one of the groups I was in to peanut butter. And the list said, peanut butter is bad. I said, stop. I love peanut butter. Kids love peanut butter. And she said, really, it is in the bad column because of A, B, C, and D, but it's got so much protein, and that helps kids. And so what we're really trying to do is forget the middle, look at the ends. Don't put candy and soft drinks and all this stuff in food bank bins. Try and be a little more consideration. But when they said peanut butter, I just had to speak up. So labeling, Ernest Holmes said we should honor everything we put in our body, not label it good or bad. Because we'll all have a cookie or a chip, and if we do that saying, I'm bad, what in the heck are we doing with that? So I asked you to think about that, because our ego just loves to be so right, and you to be so wrong, for a company to be so wrong, and us to be so right. But that's really not how it works, because my choices are my choices, and your choices are your choices, and they're all good from God's eyes. God's just going, I'll be darned. And that's true. That's true. That is how it works. And so there's three elements that Eckhart Tolle talks about. And the first one is, where am I? Remembering where we are. We live in a perfect universe. And it is perfect. It is perfect. And it's inhabited by individuals that are perfect in God's eyes. Maybe not in your own, but God sees the goodness in you. So next is, who am I? I am a unique being created by infinite intelligence, and my unfolding awareness is the evolution of my soul. So often when I'm talking with people, I say, okay, stop. Let me go to the whiteboard, and I draw this big superwoman, Superman S. I go, that's your soul. You came here in supersized, Superman or Superwoman. But often what I see is in this experience, you hit a block. And everybody's block is different. This time around, in this body, in this life, on this earth, your soul really wants to get beyond something. And often I say, do you know what that is? And they'll go, oh yeah, I know exactly what it is. And I'm always surprised at that, because they do. Every time I hit that block, instead of punching through it and understanding it, I regress. So it comes back again. Relationships, never had a good relationship. I hit that block and I say, I'm not touching it, I'm going back. So we all find these blocks in our life. And it's the evolution of the soul that kicks those out and moves forward. That's what we're here to do. Because if that's an issue for you this time around, don't do it the next time around. Take care of it now. And that's what our practitioners and ministers are for. Okay, so that's who I am, unfolding this evolution of our soul. And then finally, why am I, the topic of today? We're here to express as individual, unique souls, contributing to the evolution of the universe by bringing a greater dimension of our consciousness to the world. Our consciousness to the world. That's how we change the world. We don't need to go out and raise 40,000 people or $100 million to change the world. We change it one person at a time. One person that is a dear friend of mine that's changing the world in her way is Sherry Miller. She's the president of the cemetery in Parkville Road, where all the old people who moved here early on, a long time ago, are buried. And she loves that. She loves to talk about the history. She is bringing to life the history of the 17 and 1800s to people here in our community. And she loves it, and she's great at it. That's her help in evolving our consciousness, because often we forget how far we've come. We really have forgotten how far we come. So it is easy to get sidetracked. You know, sometimes I think, I'm not doing enough. I ask my husband, he goes, stop. Well, Chief Borisenko was in the paper the other day, and SHASCOM, the 911 group, needs more help. And I'm going, oh, I could do that. And then I go, well, wait a minute. I'm teaching a class. I'm helping with the hospice. I'm doing assistant minister. I'm co-chair of the ethics committee for our parent organization. And we have a new kitty. I don't need to be going off and do those things, because he says, Tolle says, where do you get your bliss? Where, if you have an extra half hour, do you go do your favorite thing? That's it. And writing and teaching for me is that. If I have an extra half hour, I'm in my books. I'm writing curriculum. That's my passion. And so what he says is, don't get so sidetracked, which is so easy to do. Do what your bliss is, and you help change the consciousness of the world. And it's not always sitting still. I love meditation. When I first came here, Dr. James had a 3-hour meditation, and I had purple smoke coming out of my head. And I mean, it was just an amazing thing. But what I find is it doesn't have to be that. It can just be stillness. Just sitting in stillness and just being open to what you hear. And the more you do it, the more you hear. I was at Cascade Theater a couple years ago. We were there watching a big dance troupe, and I love to dance. Don't dance anymore. So I'm sitting there feeling grumpy. Like, oh, they're so good. They're so good. Oh, I can just feel it. And I heard this voice said, Mary, you've already done that. I'm like, whoa. And I thought, you know what? In a previous life, I bet I was one hell of a dancer. And I thought, that's the thread. Those are those threads that come through us, and we are attached. We did it really great another time. I probably had 25 children in my life. I don't have any this time around, but I love children. I love to dance. I probably danced till the cows came home at another time. But it's those threads. And for me, it's important that I honor those threads instead of feel bad about them. Instead of feeling bad that I'm not doing it now. Because now, my job in this life is writing and teaching this philosophy because it's so powerful. So energy goes where our attention goes. Our thoughts are little packets of energy. And, they move at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. That's fast. It takes 8 seconds for the light of the sun to get to the earth. But in 1 second, our thoughts go out at 186,000 miles per second. Now, I like that because that's why when we do prayer for someone in London, England, they get it. When I do prayer for city council, they get it. This is how powerful our thoughts are. So where we are keeping our thoughts is very important. Very important. So I like to set my intention every day, like when I'm driving into town, I'll say, what's my intention today? Because that's what I want my focus on. And it's like, I want to be joy today. I just want to be perfect joy, even if I'm going to the dentist. And I visualize myself in the dentist chair, and her loving hands are touching me, and I'm just feeling joy, and it's just a wonderful experience. Because the work is done in mind, in our thoughts. This is how our inner and outer purpose merge. Inner and outer purpose merge. It's our tension that channels that energy. So if you haven't read Lynn McTaggart's book, The Intention Experiment, I encourage you to look at all her books because she has done cutting-edge research at MIT, Princeton, Stanford, and other universities and laboratories on intention and how that energy moves and shapes our day. So, as the opening quote said, we live in this vast energy field, this vast quantum energy field. And so when one person is thinking these thoughts today, and we know 100 other more centers are on the same topic today, there's this energy there that goes out. Now, there may be 1 million, billion people who don't want to get along or don't want to bring love to the world, but we do. And I'm really proud of how we approach this. So I'm really grateful today for the leaders of Centers for Spiritual Living for coming up with this idea where all of us can, in the same time, in the same day, talk about these issues and talk about these truths. And I'm so grateful to Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes, we say, is the founder of religious science and science of mind. But what he did, he says, I didn't create anything new. I synthesized what was out there already. And I love that because he said, hey, if we learn more, we're open at the top. We can still expand and grow. There's no hard logic here. There's no hard and fast rules here. And I'm so glad for Eckhart Tolle, brilliant mind, just a brilliant mind, and Lynn McTaggart, who spends all her time investigating all these things of why we're here. How does our mind move? How does it work? So I'd like to leave you with another quote from Ernest Holmes' book, This Thing Called You. It was one of the first books he ever wrote. And Bill Campbell did a work group on it, and they just loved it. It's a little tiny book. It's not real long. The one I came across first, somebody had highlighted. The whole book was highlighted, so it has a lot of good stuff in it. But this is from page 113. Knowing that the loving presence is always closer to me than my breath, I have nothing to fear. I feel this loving protection around me. Knowing that the song of joy, of love, and of peace is forever chanting the hymn of praise and beauty at the center of my being. I easily tune out unhappy and negative thoughts. Instead, I dial in my thoughts into the sunshine of life, into brightness and laughter, into the joyous presence of the radiant spirit. Ooh, it gives me chills. I lay aside all anxiety, all striving, and let the law of divine love operate through me and in all my affairs. Joyfully, I anticipate great abundance, more success, mountains of love and valleys of peace. In gratitude, joy wells up in my heart, and life sings the eternal song of ecstasy. Those are the words of Ernest Holmes. And so it is. Thank you.